Hey everyone, welcome back to our series on ERPs and change management. I'm here today with Kasey, who you met in the last video.
Hello again.
And yeah, this video, we are going to be focusing a bit more on change management. In our last video that you watched, we chatted about ERP implementations and how to simulate an advisor/consultant for the example and idea of a mid-sized company looking to go into the ERP space.
We'll be looking at change management today in the discovery phase or initiation, whatever methodology that you're using. Often we find that project teams, sometimes even some of our own people will say, change management just before go live, send a few communications, train a few people, all is good. No, folks. ProSci will tell you, CCMP will tell you, I think PMI will tell you too, change starts from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
Let's dive into it.
So in our example before, we simulated ChatGPT to be a consultant. We came up with some of the implementation suggestions, some of the pricing, and now where we're at is we want to know about moving into the change management phase. So what we have done in ChatGPT is we came up with some prompts. And you'll see here that we actually took a few times to do some prompts. So we said during the discovery phase of an ERMT, what are the first things that a change manager should do? And what were some of the errors in the output that ChatGPT came up with?
Gosh, it gave us a very long list. We're only in the discovery phase, and it talks about things like training needs. Often you need to do some impact assessment before you can even understand training needs. So it just felt like it was giving more of the full list rather than the really refined scope.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is kind of nice for those of you that are watching to understand that it's not just a one and done process, that kind of the prompt engineering sometimes does take multiple times. And what was a good lesson in this outcome was that when you're kind of hitting the wall like we did, it was good to go back and say, okay, actually, instead of answering our questions, please simulate yourself as this specialist. So this was the prompt that worked for us, and it was moving into a change management phase of an ERP implementation. Pretend that you are a certified change management specialist with certifications in major change management certifications, and you are advising Bob with his change management questions. So we fed the prompt into here, and then it spit out, okay, I am now going to simulate this person. So let's jump into our first prompt. And as we dive into the first prompt, what should we be asking this change management specialist?
Well, we have to start with the right information. I saw this in consulting. I see this in industry. We'll often just get asked, where's your change strategy? Get moving. And I always look back and say, okay, what are we trying to change first? We need to know. So I think I really like this prompt here because we're saying, what do we really need in order to then create the change strategy? I like this question for two reasons. One, it really helps the wider team understand how change and project and other streams work together hand in hand, and how we need to rely on each other for different pieces of information. It's also going to tell me what I need to look for in order to round out my change strategy.
And in putting in this prompt, we saw the output of many different documents to read. So it kind of gives us this comprehensive list. So the program documents that you need to read, the ERP implementation, business case, project charter, communication training plans. Communication and training plan, is that a bit ahead of itself, or is that something that still can be?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you should have a richer understanding of your stakeholders, and you should have a clearer understanding of the change impacts. Sure, you can have a very kind of macro, view around when you want key engagement or comms and engagement events, like when you want your sponsor to speak, but you're not going to get a training plan out of the discovery phase, or at least the contextualized training plan. I'd also say around risk assessment, which I know this is ProSci terminology, but it would be nice for it to further flesh out. In the discovery phase, you're really looking at your implementers and core team. So you should be looking at like maybe an implementer readiness assessment. You might also look at a wider, looking at the organization history and landscape, also an organization assessment. I like, even above when they, get us thinking about employee representatives, so that could be like change agents, but it could be even thinking broader, like unions, etc. Will there be any impacts as a result of the change where you would need to engage at that level? And I also like the flavor of end user, so bringing in that voice of the customer early on, which often gets missed.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So looking at this, I think this is a pretty good overview of some of the questions that somebody might have when they're looking to start to map out a change management plan.
Yep, it gives us great study materials and people to connect with.
I think as we start to get going on our change management plan, oftentimes we have to interview people, we have to interview stakeholders, etc. So where do we go from here?
Absolutely. So it can take different shapes and forms. So I think, we got really good indications of the types of groups or people we'd want to tap into to get to know them. A lot of the people above will either act as, maybe a sponsor or be core team members as part of the implementation team. So great to already form those relationships. What'll be interesting is what they'll tell us. Often we think, okay, 12-month runway or whatever our assignment is, but we end up finding out we have a lot more things going on, or maybe things, people, processes, etc. within the organization are not running as smoothly as we think.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like one of the things that, in an SAP implementation we had, it's me saying just like, we're already at capacity, like, and you want us to do training? Like, huh?
Yep.
Are there other things that you can kind of think about when it comes to, previous stakeholder interviews that you've had where people have been like, nope?
Absolutely, yeah. So we put in this prompt here. I mean, timeline's a usual suspect. Sometimes usability is another issue. So is it easy to click and navigate through? Also capacity, as you mentioned. I mean, often we have this pretty picture and agreement between consulting firms or implementation teams and the actual client to say, great, we'll partner with you, but we're going to need 10 resources allocated 50% for the next 12 months. When we come and hit the ground running, these people are already allocated 100, 150% doing their day job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was nice to come up with this prompt, that you might have challenges with, and it's nice that you can sort of spar and soundboard with ChatGPT to be like, okay, I've done these interviews, I've come up with these 3 potential challenges, and then the big thing here is, create a table, because of course we love tables, but capture the challenges and propose countermeasures for this strategy. So then, let's look at the output.
I like it. It's very practical. So timeline, we can't always shift the timeline, but we can reevaluate it. So in this example, we said, hey, we have a merger going on in 12 months. We want to implement in 10 months. So let's step back and look at timelines. I like the point on face implementation. Who are we merging with? Is it just one team? Are we creating one shared service with procurement or HR? Maybe that means that we can implement part of the modules and hold off on some others. I also like the recommendation, just always be transparent in communication.
Yeah. When it comes to usability, of course, there's some good input here. Training support, of course, some ones that we've sort of seen previously in previous implementations and issues that we've had. And then also to, the SME capacity. I think this is interesting. This one is interesting, and I think, you and I were chatting about it, and we're like, okay, like maybe we can go a little bit further, like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are some really good, again, natural points to touch on, but maybe we're in a case where we've already given, the topic of resource allocation, additional support and prioritization to our leader when we go to say, hey, we noticed this issue. We've already looked through these solutions. Is there anything else we can look at?
To go to the next prompt, I think this is one of the things that we chatted about and we put in is, if you want more depth and output from ChatGPT, of course, go ahead and ask it. Here, for example, I've already considered these capacity issues. What are some additional countermeasures for point number 3? And here is the output that we have.
And I love it, delegation of tasks, looking at resource augmentation. Is that an opportunity? Looking at external agencies to supplement so our SMEs can give more bandwidth to the program. Cross-training, why not? If you have an implementation period of 12 months, look at different ways to upskill within your own organization to reduce tasks, etc. So I think there's some additional points just to stretch your thinking and think more about different solutions rather than just the typical that comes to mind.
Okay, so as consultants, where would we be without PowerPoints?
Exactly, and I mean, oh gosh, we get these requests in different shapes and forms. Sometimes it's PowerPoint, sometimes it's Word, sometimes Excel. Who knows? But I think it's really helpful just to, once it's clear what channel they want us to communicate or report out in, then to understand in a really clear and structured way how to represent that content.
Yeah. So we've come up with the next prompt. I was asked to prepare the change strategy for a PowerPoint. Please provide the baseline strategy from the information above about change management into key bullet points and summaries. And here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the order is, sometimes maybe a little bit off.
Yeah.
Like for example, challenges and countermeasures, I'd usually put at the end of the pack. The change framework I would normally put near the front of the pack.
Yeah.
We can see they're using our friends ProSci here. But yeah, I mean, communication strategy, slider 2 is a good idea.
Yeah.
Training and development, it says, design a comprehensive training plan. What we said earlier is it's probably too early for that, but we can give, we look at doing, face-to-face, some e-learning, etc.
Yeah.
So again, I think the point here is really being, it does kind of 80% of the thinking, but you have to put your own critical lens on top to think about the flow, the structure, and what makes sense in the context of your initiative.
Okay, so if some of you do have ChatGPT Plus, I'm just gonna be a super dork now, so I'm sort of hijacking this to be a nerd. If you have a code interpreter in ChatGPT 4, I think it's cool because you can already just put this output and have ChatGPT make a PowerPoint presentation for you. So what I did is I copied and pasted the output that it gave us, and it looked like this. So I said, hey, go ahead, please clean this up. It did, and then I put in a second prompt in which I said, please add the summary to the deck. Now, one of the things that you have to do with code interpreters, you have to add a document, so just make a blank presentation, call it something like change management presentation, leave it blank, and then upload it into code interpreter, and then say, please add a summary to this deck. And it's because if you don't add the PowerPoint, it will say, I can't do that, sorry, Dave. But here we go. And let's click on the updated presentation. Let's go ahead and open it.
It's not bad, and I mean, a lot of consulting firms or industry will have their own formula for a change strategy.
Absolutely.
So eventually you could update the prompts just to feed your typical elements, put in your key findings, and ask ChatGPT to generate the new shell.
Yeah.
And just plug and play from there. But it's brilliant and saves time. Why do we need to
Yeah.
create PowerPoint shells when
Yeah.
we can just have it generated based on the findings from interviews and nature of the program?
So with that being said, that wraps up sort of the change management. We're having an upcoming implementation. I hear the words change management. ChatGPT, please help me be an expert, or not even an expert. Please just help me understand the full scope, where I can ask you questions.
Yep.
And it can give out some pretty decent responses.
Where do I need to start? Who should I speak to? What components should be included in the strategy? And just save me some time. Build me that strategy shell, please.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, like you mentioned, that it can do sort of 70 to 80% of the work, but the 20, 30% of that critical, adapting, adjusting, that's up to you.
I want to put my energy here, overlaying, going through on top. I don't want to put my energy in, especially with really demanding clients, high pressure. I don't want to spend time formatting, putting information together. Yeah,
absolutely. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video where we will be talking about
stakeholder analysis, doing a double click.
Ooh, deep dive. Okay, so see you then, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next video where we'll... No. Okay.